name is Joseph Lopez, and my presentation is called The Oozing Lesions, True Cost of Big Oil. And I will be addressing the accountability issues with the environmental agencies. I stumbled upon this research paper because there was a story I heard, a billion-dollar oil company dumping oil all over the place in North Dakota, and they were getting such microscopic amounts of fines that it really didn't have any effect. And I was wondering how could this be? Aren't there agencies, governmental oversight? And upon research, I found that there's actually a major problem that not just on the federal level, but on the state level as well, of environmental protection agencies being much too lenient. To start off, I would like to talk about what exactly is the EPA. Well, there's actually two levels of environmental protection agencies. What most people think of when they think of environmental agencies is the United States Environmental Protection Agency, which is the overall big picture. Their job is to make sure that when there's something that crosses border states or it's not in a state, it's in the ocean, it's their job to clean it up. However, there's also state levels. For each state, they have their own regulatory. Just some examples are the California Department of Conservation, the Clean Air Agency. Their mission is to keep the environment clean and to enforce laws passed by Congress or protect the air we breathe, the water we drink, and the habitats that wildlife live in. However, under the watch of the EPA, there have been many corporations that have gotten away with major incidents that they were directly responsible for with little to no punishment. One such hotspot for this crime is in North Dakota in the partial oil field. In 2006, with the discovery of the partial oil field, there was an oil field boom in North Dakota. And North Dakota became the third largest oil producing state in the nation. And because of that, from 2006 and through 2014, over 18 million gallons of oils and contaminants spilled into the environment. However, because North Dakota is so dependent on these sources of energy, as it is the number one export, they have been extremely lenient to these companies. The governing body that's primarily responsible is the North Dakota Industrial Commission, and specifically the Department of Mineral Resources, Oil and Gas Division. They are responsible for administering penalties for these environmental violations, and they manage the state laws concerning the oil industry. They are notorious for cutting down penalties by up to even 90%. And one such case is in their handling of Continental Resources, a multi-billion-dollar natural gas company. They have had 937 environmental incidences over their 20-year span, and they have spilled 1.6 million gallons of crude oil into the environment, contaminating our drinking water. They were originally fined by the Industrial Commission $220,000. However, as their usual practice, they cut it down all the way down to $20,000. This fine is so small to a billion-dollar company that it fails its main purpose as an incentive to make sure to prevent oil spills. To give a simple analogy, let's say I'm driving down the speed limit 25, and I pulled over because I was going over the speed limit, and my ticket comes out to $100. However, if it gets cut down by a whole zero to $10, I would be a lot less inclined to follow the rules. Let's say I was running late to a test and I needed to get there. I would be willing to take that $10 fine to make sure to get on time. Similarly, these corporations, in their attempt to maximize their profit, have cut corners, and many times they actually can save money this way. This is a failure at the state level, but sadly, these fiascos come from the federal level as well. A very famous case is the BP oil spill in 2010. As we know, on April 20th, in 2010, an oil rig owned by British Petroleum exploded off the Gulf of Mexico, and over the course of 87 days, more than 200 million gallons spilled into the ocean across 68,000 square miles. 11 workers were killed and 17 were injured. The government, in its attempt to clean up this mess, sprayed chemicals called PAHs, which break down rubber, oils, and grease. However, these chemicals are so toxic that there were many cases of mutated creatures reported around the area. Here's some pictures. For instance, in 2010, half of the shrimp caught around the Gulf of Mexico were missing its eyes. There were also cases of chemical burns on many creatures, and they were left for dead. Baby dolphins were found along the coast dead at 10 times the rate, at 10 times the normal rate. Crabs were found with extra claws, some having none. We will never truly understand the extent of our damage that we have caused to the environment around the Gulf of Mexico, but scientists estimate there will be decades before the ecosystem makes a full recovery. So in 2015, BP, with agreement to the federal government, they were initially fined $20.8 billion, and 11 counts of manslaughter were put forth. However, with their fancy lawyers, they were able to cut this down all the way to $5.51 billion, with over $15 billion of it coming out of their taxes, as it was apparently a business expense. And all manslaughter charges were eventually dropped, and not a single soul from BP spent a minute in jail. So, how do we stop this and keep these corporations accountable? Just a few suggested solutions. They need to implement stricter laws to enforce that, make sure they follow these rules, because BP, they were found negligent as skipping tests, mandatory tests, and they were found 100% negligent, but they were able to get away with it. We also need to remove the practice of reducing these fines by such absurd amounts. And finally, we need to charge the violations as crimes rather than simple misdeeds. An example of these solutions being put in place is in 2012, a company by the name of Halleck Operating, they are also a North Dakota oil company, and they spilled over 800,000 gallons contaminated wastewater into empty oil wells. They were fined originally $1.5 million, and they were told by the state level to halt its legal disposal of waste. However, they secretly continued, and when they were caught, the federal government decided to step in. The federal EPA, when they stepped in, they decided on a rare occasion to file a criminal case rather than a civil case like many of the others. This opens up the opportunity and the possibility of prison time, which civil cases cannot. The president of the company, Nathan Garber, was charged with 11 felonies and faces 50 years in prison. With the possibility of prison, this could finally make sure to keep companies accountable. They will be inclined to inspect their oil rigs, which they neglect today because it cuts into their profit margins. In conclusion, although fossil fuels will never be the cleanest source of fuel, it is imperative that through government oversight, we minimize the damage we do to ourselves and the environment. With corporate accountability, we can hope for a cleaner and healthier tomorrow. Thank you very much.